All right, today we have with us our first ever special guest, Scotty Lefkowitz, who's from the DC area, recently graduated from the University of Chicago with a degree in psychology. Scotty, tell us a little bit more about your background and education, and then how you came about with this vision of the Luddite app.
Yeah, sure. So when I was in Chicago, I kind of developed a deep interest in behavior and kind of at a metacognitive level, my own behavior and how I could increase and better myself. I guess college was a time for self-reflection in that way. A huge flaw that I saw in myself was how I was interacting with technology and kind of wasting a lot of time in that regard, and that led me to a deep interest in psychology.
Tell us about the development of this idea of having an app that's called Luddite. How did you first conceive of it? Were you just sort of by yourself thinking about it, or were you talking with friends? How did it get started?
So Luddite kind of derives from a familial joke. One time my dad called me and my friend Luddites when we were just joking around. He mistakenly used the word, which is pretty funny. So he teased him about that, and it was kind of in our vernacular. The idea kind of originated from obviously this personal disenchantment with technology, and the initial idea was a monitor for your browser, such that if you visit a website too many times, it will send a discouraging email to a friend. So kind of using that social disincentive to motivate better consumer behavior when interacting with your computer. And that kind of just evolved into what we have now, which is kind of a similar concept but a little more complicated.
So it sounds like your initial idea involves some kind of accountability. Like if it notices that you're on a website for too long, it notifies a friend. Scotty's been on this web page for half an hour. Give him a call or ping him, and
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what did you understand the word Luddite to mean at that time?
I had no idea what it meant at the time. Okay. He meant it you guys are being idiots. But
well,
I looked it up and I was like, that's not what that means.
Well, actually, he's kind of right. So the word Luddite in English actually comes from a person's name and refers to people who generally avoid technology or modernization and tend either to shun it or maybe find themselves as people who, for whatever reason, are not capable of using it, and so they try to regard it as unnecessary or foolish, let's say. As you worked on this application or the idea, did you have any thoughts about it being kind of a counterculture sort of thing?
Yeah, definitely. I think it certainly represents a rebellious aspect against one's individual habits and how they're interacting with their devices.
Talk more about that rebelliousness, or what, either from your own experience or observations, what's rebellious about not wanting to be on social networking or on a device?
It's a good question. Personally, disenchantment that where Luddite kind of stemmed from it. About actually a year ago, I lost my phone on New Year's last year, and I just never replaced it. And I was always kind of crazy, hiding my phone away and stuff. But not having a phone was a really weird thing for a lot of people. When I met a new person, they'd be like, "Why don't you have a phone?" And that'd be a major talking point. And it's also annoying for because you can't really interact with your friends in the same way that they interact with other people. Usually people reach me by email, which is very odd. You're rejecting the means of communication that everyone else pretty much uses. And you're doing it in the name of something something kind of intangible and difficult to explain. So I think that is countercultural.
Did you know there's a podcaster that I listen to named David Rubin, who I believe it's every August, goes for a whole month. No device, no email. He just really fully disconnects. And he's done it for a few years now. And on his show, he talks about that kind of experience. Tell us a little bit more about what it was like during that period of time when you didn't have a phone. How did it feel at the beginning when you first lost it? were you okay with it? Like, how was that initially for you?
Yeah, I thought it was enjoyable. Like, there's just such a tangible freedom that I associate with not having devices. I think my parents thought I lost it on purpose, actually. But I think the thing that I never realized was, like, whenever I was bored or anything, like, all the like vacant parts of my day would just be filled with a screen, and then kind of eliminating that really just made me like have to creatively fill my time and like do things that stretch my mind. And that was just like a really fun and like powerful exercise.
So, are you saying that having a device could be an impediment to creativity, or?
It might not be that for everyone, and I surely think it would be pretentious to suggest that, like from my personal experience, that's the case. But I think for me personally, like having a phone constantly around and that omnipresence, like I just don't use it correctly to
Hmm.
those ends of like creativity.
Okay.
So I think it certainly is an impediment for me.
Okay. So, my son Jonah, who's 14 years old, has some questions for you. Jonah, please ask Scotty your first question.
All right. Well, Scotty, what is your vision of a perfect or good social networking app?
Yeah, so I think the perfect social networking app is probably TikTok right now, in terms of like how how entertaining it is. It's just like there's infinite content and it's tailored exactly to you. I think it's like such a powerful force that it's like impossible to put down. So I would say it's as close to perfection as there is. But I think for the individual and something that we're hinting at, like there's a difference between like something being like perfectly tailored with like an algorithm to you and something that's like actually good and beneficial for the user, because kind of deleterious things can happen when you're using something nonstop.
I think you're onto an interesting point. You mentioned how TikTok tailors content for you. They do that through artificial intelligence and machine learning technology. So there's this idea that something is trying to understand you and present content to you that you would like to continue to consume. What do you say about like what you're trying to do with Luddite? How is it similar or different to TikTok?
Yeah, I mean, I think Luddite might be the antithesis of TikTok in terms of social networking.
Mhm.
But you're right. Like the best form of like social interaction is like you can't match through an application that feeling of like sitting around a dinner table with your friends and family. I think what Luddite is trying to do is there's kind of this inherent problem with using technology a lot, and it's not an issue with like anything about the technology specifically. It's
Mhm.
about like how we're interacting with it. It's a behavioral issue. And lots of people kind of struggle with how much time they're spending, and they see negative consequences, but at the same time, it's just what everyone's doing. So they'll just maintain those same habits. So the idea behind Bloodite is to help people form better habits by using the same incentives that make something like TikTok so powerful and so like have such a draw to people.
What are the better habits that you're referring to?
Tons of people have screen time. Like if you go to your screen time in iOS,
Mhm.
most people would reflect upon and say that's unhealthy, but they don't really take action to doing that. Like most people have the self-awareness to say that their technology habits aren't great.
What makes them not great though? What's not happening that makes them not great?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's just a plethora of things. It's just like the human experience, I think, is somewhat stunted
Hmm.
when you're just scrolling.
Are you suggesting that social networking actually is rather dissociative?
Yeah, I think anyone who's spent like 15 hours behind a screen, like they've shared this feeling of like some like emptiness
Hmm.
that just being behind a screen all day kind of promulgates.
Sure. Okay. Jonah, what's your next question?
My next question is, how does the Ludite app work?
Yeah, so it's essentially in the barest terms, Instagram for not using your phone. So it has a similar photo sharing feed to Instagram, but where it differs is in order to post onto the platform, you have to do something called starting a moment. And in a moment, you cannot leave the app. You can turn your phone off and kind of do things that you do without your phone. But when if you leave the app, then you'll lose your moment. So the whole point is to encourage people to kind of step back from their phone. And when they're done with what they're doing without their phone, they can return and kind of save or share what they did. And when they post that, they'll simultaneously gain points, which they can compete with their friends on. So the whole underlying point is to create a bunch of social incentives to put down your phone.
So I've signed up for Ludite App, and I've connected with a couple people on it already and shared a few moments. Scotty, I'd like to share it in this conversation, and maybe you can walk me through a demo. Would that be all right? Sure. We first connected on Instagram, and I read your post about your app, and so I thought that's really cool. Maybe you can walk me through the scenario of sharing a moment.
Certainly. So at the top of the screen, so as you can see, there's kind of a feed of moments as we're talking about, and you posted yeah, exactly, some photos, and it tells you what you did. You can describe what you did, and it tells you for how long. And so you'll gain corresponding points for the amount of time you spend off your phone. And the top of your screen, there's 3 different categories of different moments.
Okay.
The one that we're on right now is just essentially all your friends' moments. The middle one is an inner circle, and that's people who are within your inner circle, which is kind of a more complex thing. And then the one to the far right is personal memories. So things that are just saved for you to see. And those are 3 different categories of things that you can post your moment to.
Okay. So how would I do a personal memory? Could I do one right now?
Yeah, so to start a moment, you press the button in the top right.
Okay.
And when you're in a moment, you can...
Is there selfie mode?
No, there's no selfie mode. It's in your moment, you can see the kind of timer clicking up. And you're supposed to kind of turn your phone off and do your unplugged activity. You can press the button on the bottom right, and I can show you how you can post so when you're done with your activity, you post, and you can scroll to post to decide where you want to post that.
Oh, okay. So the selector on top, I could say share with my friends or with my inner circle or for myself.
Exactly.
All right. Whereas this one, here's a friend that I made, Jess, who's liked some of what I had, and we were watching A Christmas Story and also opening some gifts, and so this what the moment was. So you can see here the movies going on the TV screen. What can I do with this post, or what can other people do when they see my post?
Yeah, so they can like and comment on it, and you're also competing with other people in the app, so you'll gain corresponding points. So you gain 45 seconds of points. Yeah, exactly. You have a comment section.
How is it different from Instagram, though?
I think the critical difference is that it tells you how long someone spent off their phone. So it's really just everything's pointing back to putting down your phone and sharing what you're doing when you're off your phone.
Are there any other features in the app that you want to walk us through?
I guess the last thing would be the rankings page. So if you go to the sidebar on the top left,
all right,
and then press rankings.
Okay. Oh.
You can kind of see a display of everyone who's on the app and how much time they spent off their phone.
So are these minutes?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
That's minutes in the last week.
Oh, I got a notification here. What's that?
Yeah, the notifications.
Okay, right on.
Also on the sidebar, if you clicked on top left, there's a time off percentile, which what it means is that's the percentile in the app you are of people who are doing moments actively.
So does this mean that 48% of the other users are having more time off than me?
Yeah, exactly.
So talk about these other features here. We got home and rankings we looked at. What does search people let me do?
Yeah, so it lets you kind of search around the app and find new people.
What if I look for someone named Jonah? Hey, Jonah, do you have your phone with you?
I do. I'm on the Ludite app right now, and I see your request.
Okay, would you please accept my friend request?
Yes.
All right. Now, Scotty, would this update real time, or do I need to do like a pull refresh or?
Yeah, I think you might have to refresh it.
Okay, let's see. Jonah, have you accepted the friend request?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so we'll go back in. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
All right, so we're friends now, and then I can add to inner circle. Oh, so now he has to accept the inner circle request?
Exactly, yeah.
All right, Jonah, would you please do that?
I got that as well.
All right, let me go out and back in. All right, we are inner circle status. So now, cool. Okay, so that one's in the inner circle area. Right on. Okay, and so does that mean only Jonah would see it, not everybody on Ludite, right?
Exactly. Yeah, the rest is pretty bare bones. Like there's
Okay.
settings and there's a share feature.
So I'm sharing the app. It's like notifications. Okay, contact us. Opens up an email form. User guide. So it's a video user guide,
Yeah.
and people can get this app from the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store, right?
Yeah.
All right, Jonah, what's your next question?
My last question is, why should people use Ludite as opposed to other social media apps?
Yeah, I think the short answer is to help form better habits and to do it with your friends. In terms of Ludite interacting with all these other apps, I think it can definitely have a huge positive benefit just because it can serve as like a friendly reminder to occasionally put down your phone and do something without your phone. There's something about just like having a lot of unstructured time that I really like. You really don't get that when you have a phone because there's always something to do. There's always something to scroll to.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I think the biggest change was really I just started reading a ton.
Reading. Okay.
Yeah.
What are you reading?
I just read a book about the Beatles that I just finished. But like a whole bunch of stuff. Like I never used to read. Like when I was in high school, I wouldn't read. I
Okay.
couldn't stand it. and then I just became a huge reader and I really like fell in love with it.
You mentioned earlier about like your views, and maybe people think you're a little strange, or it's not for everyone.
Yeah, I think people could list a million reasons to have a phone. But probably the key one being like social interaction. And I guess the thing that kind of allows me to skirt past that is like I have a close group of friends,
Okay.
and we don't really need to like be constantly texting each other. Like
How do you keep in touch with them?
yeah, like I'll shoot them a text or an email, and they're pretty understanding about it. But like most of our interaction just involves like actually hanging out. There is something about like having a phone that like allows you, for example, like Snapchat, you're like constantly in tune with your friends, and you're probably sending like 1,000 messages a day, which like really keeps you in touch with your friends at a very different level than I could achieve just by like sending emails to people. So I think if your goal was to like be interacting with people and to be forming like close relationships, I think that would be a very productive tool. But I think there's subsequent downsides to that, which I personally experienced. I think the distraction of having a phone and always being in touch with people was very negative for me. Like, as I mentioned, I never read. I feel like I was turning like some part of my brain off that once I was able to kind of experience that freedom, it was just really powerful. And I realized that I didn't want to go back to that version where I was like constantly in touch with people.
So I think, to sum it up, the way I felt when I saw your post on Instagram about this app was, okay, this guy Scotty is really onto something. And I love that, Scotty, how you've taken something that people have talked about and you've actually implemented it in an application.
It was I mean it was like kind of a weird process, like with lots of serendipity, because like I was almost done with the project at one point, but then we kind of randomly got accepted into this program that allowed us to have funding, and that was kind of a huge swing of luck that kind of kept it alive. And then
let's talk a little bit more about that serendipity. So you said you were almost done. Do you mean that you were getting frustrated and ready to give up, or
yeah, exactly. I mean, so we did this like the New Venture Challenge, which at U Chicago is like a big deal. Like, for example, Grubhub and the app that eventually came Venmo, like they were both started through this challenge.
Really?
So it's like a very well-funded challenge, and like you get to pitch to venture capitalists. So just getting into it was very cool.
Okay.
But then we didn't do well on it. Like we didn't make the finals of the competition, and that was discouraging. And so I kind of was like, there wasn't really a path forward. Like there was not really a lot of money that the company had besides like a small amount that the school had given us. And kind of we just got very lucky and applied to the summer accelerator and got in.
Well, so you created a company, Ludite Inc., right? And you had some initial funding. You submitted the app or the idea? Which was it?
The idea.
Okay, so you submitted the idea. You weren't a finalist, but then it sounds like you decided to apply for what did you apply for?
This Polsky Summer Accelerator, which really we shouldn't have been accepted into, to be blunt. We didn't do well in the competition, the New Venture Challenge at all, and usually you have to like win that or like at least be a finalist to get into the Summer Accelerator.
So what I'm hearing is that you had a couple reasons to just forget it, just give up, but but you didn't, and you applied anyway, and that's part of what, you know, the kind of story I like to talk about on Unkink Your Think, because I think it's very common for people to have bright ideas. They give it one shot, doesn't work. Okay, never mind. I, fail fast and all that stuff. And I guess it wasn't meant to be, so I'll forget it or do something else. But you didn't. You stayed with it, and then you applied. And so what the outcome with Polsky was?
Yeah, I mean, like, it's not like a perfect linear journey. Like, that was a huge step up.
Yeah.
Like, kind of made it a thing. But, like, it was a virtual summer thing. So, like, that was kind of tough because it's not a true summer accelerator experience. But it was still, like, really cool. Like, the people we got to interact with online were great. I'm certainly passionate about the issue, and I'm sure that counts for a lot. But they definitely took a risk. I'm sure like every entrepreneurship investment is a risk at some level, like a huge risk. But I don't know. I think there's like, you could chalk it up to a whole bunch of factors.
Okay. Well, I mean, I like the fact that you didn't just give up, but you it sounds like you're like, what do I have to lose? I'll apply for this and we'll see what happens. And you referred to luck and serendipity. I'm going to say that, okay, you couldn't have controlled whether they approved it or not, but you did make the effort and the attempt to apply, and you succeeded. And I remember hearing a talk once, and I'll cite and provide a link to that talk. But really what stuck with me was when she talked about this, there's a cycle of succeed or fail or negative thinking, and how do you get out of that? And one of the things that she taught was this idea that it's not succeed or fail, it's succeed or survive. And you can try something, and if you succeed, great, keep doing it. If you didn't get what you expected, but you survived, maybe try doing something different. And I think in this case, it sounds like that you could have said, well, we didn't win, it was a failure, okay, move on. But what you really did was you survived and decided it was worth trying something else, and you were rewarded for that. So I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on that, and would you agree?
Yeah, completely. I think it was also like really motivating because like the company itself had a near-death experience. Like there was definitely like a couple of days where I was just like, this is probably over. And that was a really like deflating feeling.
Yeah.
Because I put so much work into it, and it was like pretty tied up with my identity and like lots of things. That was a really bad feeling. And once you kind of got like breathed new life into it, I was like, okay, like I was like doubly motivating because I never wanted to feel that again.
Right on. Hey, that's awesome. So what are your future plans with this app, or do you have any other apps that you have in mind that you're thinking about developing?
No, pretty tied to this idea of like inverting the social incentives and trying to like create a tool to help people control their screen time. So the future plans are just promoting this app and kind of getting the bugs out of it and making it more usable. Like I think for an early user, some of the things are difficult to understand as we kind of went through that process. Like the top bar is not immediately intuitive. So kind of working through that stuff and making it better.
So I heard you use the phrase invert social incentives. What does that mean?
Yeah, sorry, that's kind of something I like a boilerplate thing I use. But I'm meaning by that is like there's social incentives tied with Snapchat or Instagram or TikTok that are very much towards pulling you towards your phone. And the whole idea of Luddite is to invert those social incentives to have you put your phone down instead of picking it up.
Okay, all right. And you talked about working out the bugs. What are you currently doing in terms of your app? I think you wrote in your post that it's in a beta test right now. So are you looking for testers?
Yeah, so I guess my days are filled with kind of reaching out to people on Instagram, and a lot of those people will come back to me and they'll say, hey, there's something wrong here. So just having like hundreds of people use the app and like give me that feedback is very valuable.
Tell people where they can find your app and what the sign up process is like, and if they have feedback for you on the app, how they can communicate that to you.
Yeah, sure. So you can find me at Luddite Friend on Instagram, and you can also download the app Ludite, not two D's, on the App Store, on the Google Play Store. And yeah, feel free to reach out with any questions.
I tell you, this conversation, I knew it was going to be awesome because I really like what you're doing. I'm going to say right now it exceeded my expectations for the kinds of things that we've talked about. I love your vision with the app and this concept of inverting social incentives. I'm definitely going to be telling my friends about the app. I think you are really onto something that is important, especially as time goes on. These technologies are not going to go away. Social networks and social media, I mean, it's pretty clear that these things are part of being, part of the human experience now. People are growing up with having no concept of life without smart mobile devices or the internet. So it's kind of like if you can't beat them, join them kind of thing. But there's something to be said about how people really were designed and created to interact and connect with each other. So I want to let you have the last word. Is there anything that you'd like to say to our viewers or anything else to promote this?
No, I would say definitely give it a try. I also want to thank you, Alex and Jonah. It was really a fun conversation.
Scotty, it was a pleasure talking to you today. I wish you the best with the app. I think you have a brilliant idea. I'm excited for you, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this grows and gets adopted. And maybe a few months down the road, we could talk again and have a little retrospective on how it's gone. How does that sound?
Yeah, we definitely should.
Okay, right on. Well, my best wishes to you, Scotty, and your family. Enjoy the rest of the holidays. A very blessed and prosperous 2021 to you. And we'll be in touch. All right.
Cool.
All right. Thanks, guys.
I hope you enjoyed that interview that we just had with Scotty Lefkowitz about his Luddite app. It was a lot of fun to talk to him and also get a demonstration of how to use the app. This is just one example of the kind of content that we're putting together on Unkink Your Think. In the description below, we provide links to the talk by Mel Robbins about how to beat self-doubt in 5 seconds, and also to David Rubin talking to Michaela Peterson about how he takes August off of the internet every summer. No devices, no social media, no social networking. Those are really interesting stories as well, and they've helped me out in my personal life. If you liked this video and got some value out of the discussion, please click the subscribe button, tap the notification bell so that you find out about future posts, give us a thumbs up, and share the link to this video with your friends. You can find me on Instagram at AccessCloudNow. You can find Scotty on Instagram at Luddite Friends. You can also go to my website, www.accesscloudconsulting.com, to find out more about technology consulting, professional coaching, and educational services that we provide. If you have some thoughts or questions about Unkink Your Think, the Luddite app, or any future possible topics we might discuss, put them in the comments below, or send me an email, alex@accesscloudconsulting.com. And don't forget, if at first you don't succeed, unkink your think and try something different.